Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Contractor Revolution. Every January at our annual Winter Summit, Breakthrough Academy hosts Awards Night, and it's one of our favorite nights of the year. To our amazing group of 500 plus entrepreneurs, we give out 5 awards like Entrepreneur of the Year, Community Builder of the Year, Leader of the Year, and Implementer of the Year. But the award that always gets the tears rolling, always gets the standing ovation, is the Turnaround of the Year award. The Turnaround of the Year is given to the entrepreneur who has achieved extraordinary growth despite facing great adversity. And that's really just a fancy way of saying it goes to the man or woman who's been through some seriously heavy stuff and come out the other side. This year's winner was Stephen Osborne of the Osborne Company, and 2021 was not kind to Stephen. His father, David, the founder of the company, passed away very suddenly and unexpectedly. Infighting amongst his siblings ensued, everyone wanting their cut. Then a group of non-construction consultants hired by family members, totally unbeknownst to Stephen, forced him to step down as president. As grief and trauma ripped through the family, the business suffered too. The Osborne Company wasn't exactly a cash cow before the loss, but now they dropped down to a meager 1.7% net. They were in dire straits. Now, I don't want to give it all away, so we'll just fast forward 2 years, okay? And the Osborne Company is on trend to do $15 million in revenue with a super healthy 15% net. Their team is the happiest and most functional they've ever been, and they've actually become one of the largest EV charging station installers in the USA. The conversation that follows is about how Stephen got through the darkest time in his life, steered his father's company and legacy away from financial ruin, and win the Turnaround of the Year award. To learn more about the Breakthrough Academy community Stephen references throughout this conversation, click the link in the description. But without further ado, let's dive in with Stephen Osborne.
You're watching Contractor Evolution, where we unpack the systems, tactics, and skills you need to take your fast-growing contracting business to the next level.
You're here to learn what it takes to scale up, work less, and increase profitability. You've come to the right place.
Stay tuned to learn what separates the new breed of contractor from the old school, and welcome to your ultimate guide on the business of contracting.
Stephen, it's really good to see you, man, and thank you for making time for us.
It's great to be here, Benji.
So, take us through the year that was 2021.
Well, yeah, and I'll have to tell you, Benji, starting out, it's kind of emotional having gone through this and thinking about this segment here, because 2021 was by far the most difficult year in my life. The year started out really great. I'd been in the company for about 5.5 years. I'd recently been named as the president of the company alongside my father, the founder and CEO. And he had run the company by himself since 1976. So he was thrilled to have me there working with him. And it was always a dream to have one of his kids there. So he stepped aside in January 2021. And I was the king of the hill. I was like, this is great. We have a ton of work. We weren't really making a lot of money, but we were having fun. And he stepped aside. He was still available. I talked to him 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. But in June of 2021, he got really sick, went into the hospital about a week later. And that was the last time I saw him. It was about June 19th of 2021. So just barely over 2 years from now. And he passed away July 15th of 2021. So I was very quickly thrown in a position where I had no safety net of the counselor and guidance individual who'd been there. He would allow me to fail. He'd allow me to succeed. But I didn't have that safety net anymore of the guy to call and the one to talk to. So very, very traumatic. I really didn't know what to do. Yeah. It was just, it was the worst case scenario. And he and I even would play the scenario out, like what would happen if he passed away, or what happened if my mother passed away, and how we would handle the business, and he and I transition. But even though we had talked about it, we never really actually thought it would happen while I was younger. And so here we are 2 years later, and the company has dramatically changed. It's not even the same company remotely of what it was 2 years ago because of what we had to go through since then.
So you get made president by your father. This is all above board. It's being discussed. 6 months later, very tragically, he passes quite suddenly. And you're sort of, like you say, king of the hill at the beginning of the year. And then at about the midway point, you're feeling pretty lost without a paddle. When you say worst case scenario, besides just the sheer loss and grief of losing a parent, were there other things about the business situation, the family situation, whatever, that made it truly worst case scenario? Were there other elements at play that made it like an especially bad time?
Yeah. And leading up to this, if I can back up for a few months, I was named president of the company in, I believe, 2019. So about a year before he passed away. And one of his stipulations for any of his children joining the company was, you got to work somewhere else for a few years. You got to prove yourself as an honorable worker, hard worker. And when you come into the company, you need to be 100% in. And so I had been a police officer for a few years. I had been in the military, both on part and full-time status, for about 15 years. And I left both of those careers. So me personally, I had no safety net. It was all in 100%. And I left those retirements behind and that career path. Coming into the construction industry, I'm not a contractor by trade. I did not go to construction school or contracting education. I went through business school, and I have a master's in business administration. So I learned the business side of things and started out in the finance department and working my way up through the company on the finance side. So when I lose my lead estimator, the guy who knows everybody, who's been in construction for 40 plus years, who has all the contacts and knows how to crank out an estimate in no time, all of a sudden I didn't have him anymore. He was gone. Mm-hmm. And so my number one revenue generator had passed away. And I just, frankly, I just didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. For a brief moment there, it was a very scary moment not having that safety net.
How'd the rest of the family take this news? What sort of happened in the years that followed?
Yeah, so that's probably the toughest part, honestly. Even despite losing my father, he was a good man, and it was just a joy working with him. The saddest part about this is very quickly I had family members and even a few employees, but mostly some family members that wanted to come into the company and start having an ownership stake in things, so to speak. So maybe this is a failure on my education, but I'm just a lowly contractor out of Kansas, and I didn't know what a C-suite was. I didn't know what that was. I was just working. Like we just show up to work and we work. And I have family members saying, well, I want to come in and work in the C-suite, but I only want to do it part-time while I'm still doing my other career paths. And it just didn't work. I'm like, you can't do that in construction. We're here, we're all in, we're a team, or you're out. Like you're either in or you're out. We don't work together part-time. And so that was a big challenge. And to be honest with you, a lot of hurt feelings over it. But this is, at least in 2021, this was an 80-hour-a-week job. This was all in, and we were just struggling. We were just pounding away and not really doing anything very smart. And so by losing my lead estimator, my father and my friend, it was just like the whole world was about to just come crashing down. And then to have other people want to reach in and just take an ownership stake, but not actually produce, it created a lot of conflict, and all of the employees could feel it. So all of this was crashing in on me in the fall of 2021.
There was another thing that you had mentioned. I think this is an important point to hit in the sort of setup of this conversation and what you and the company went through, which was at some point along the way, you were removed or advised to remove yourself from that president's position. What happened there? So you were sort of like the only guy who knows how anything is even running, and somebody's advice is, I think we should demote him. What was that chapter of the story?
It's honestly, at this point, it's laughable. So I've only been essentially fired from a job twice in my life, and once by each of my parents. One was back in 2007, and it was as the economy was turning, the housing market was collapsing. 2008, I'm sorry, and I was the first one to get cut. And I was pretty bitter about it back then, but I realized my father was willing to let me go, the lowest performer, before any of his other employees who were actually performing. And that's a hard thing for a father to do. So I actually respect him more because of it. During the transition after my father had passed, we had a few individuals, one accountant that was working with our company who just didn't understand cash flow movement and contractor payments and revenue streams. And so there were a lot of questions about how the organization was run. And so my family had actually hired an outside consulting firm without me even knowing. They had no construction experience whatsoever. And this consulting firm comes in and decides maybe Stephen needs to be removed from the company for an extended period. So when I thought I was walking into an attorney's office to sign a contract to purchase the company, and I was very excited, I had my wife with me there. Our attorney was there. We were all thumbs up. This attorney on the family side decided to let me know that I was being let go from the company. So,
oh my God, dude.
So
a comedy of errors at this point.
Absolutely bonkers, bizarre. And I was just totally in shock. I went through all the stages of grief in that moment right there. And then I just realized, like, we just need to relax for a minute. Everything's fine. And unfortunately, everything at the office was falling apart for about 48 hours. And that was a big wake-up call for me as well, because here I'm removed from the company for 48 hours involuntarily. But what would have happened if I was in a car accident in a coma for 3 days? And everything was just falling apart in total chaos. So I found that to be a massive leadership failure on my part. Even though it was an involuntary departure for 48 hours, I realized we really need to fix some stuff here, because I need to be able to step away for more than 48 hours and go enjoy life with my wife and kids. And so it was a pretty big wake up call, very humbling.
How long did that demotion
huge
last?
Turning point.
Was that sort of, you saying that was only 48 hours that you were sort of demoted from president to GM, or was it a longer thing than that?
No, I was essentially demoted for just over 3 months, and remained in a general manager position until the day that we were able to purchase the company. So
that was the resolution. What was you purchasing it and reinstating yourself? Now, okay. Yep. So, all right. Unbelievably difficult stuff on the personal side. On the business side, I understand, as all this is going on, and perhaps related to it, connected to it to some degree. I'll let you fill in the blanks there. But I also know that the year 21 was, you guys, like you said at the outset, you guys, it was fun. You guys were growing, weren't making a ton of money. I think we were chatting offline. You said your net was somewhere around 5%. But in all not even that. In all the chaos, it drops down to 1 or below 1%. So you're just kind of floating on by the skin of your teeth. What was going on to the business entity while all this personal stuff was happening as well?
Main thing was we lacked any form of recognizable systems or any form of accountability. We had employees just doing what they wanted. We'd try to roll out a new process, like, hey, we're going to handle our invoicing this way. And it'd be great for about 2 weeks and everyone would forget. Or, hey, we're going to handle our inspections on our jobs this way. 2 or 3 weeks and everyone would forget. We'd try to get our goal set and review meetings done, and they'd go for about a month and then just wouldn't really take. It just didn't take. So at that point where my father had passed away, he was still managing a few projects, just very loosely. Even though he had stepped away, he was still managing a few, and I didn't have anyone to step in and manage for him. Or at least I didn't align with the correct people. So we started hemorrhaging cash pretty quick. And people were just going where they wanted to go and doing what they wanted to do. And I didn't have any way of tracking all of our people at the same time. I didn't have any common operating picture. I didn't really know where we were at financially. It was just trying to find out where we were financially was just a challenge of its own.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned too, there were a whole bunch of business there's sort of like eight at the time. There were sort of like 8 different operating companies underneath the umbrella that was the Osborne Company. Was there some like too many irons and too many fires type thing going on?
Goodness, I don't even know how many there were. There were at least 8 or 9 different little operating companies, and some of them were property holding companies. There were some property development companies, side construction companies that had just been sitting on the shelf for years and weren't really being used. And so we're managing all these organizations, and it was just a lot of static. Nothing was aligned. Nothing was systemized. And it's just the concept every day in 2021 and into the middle of 2022 was just show up to work, hustle, and go home tired. And if we shake out profitable, then everybody high five. And so the reality of the situation is 2021, we did about $10 million worth of work, and we ended up having about a 1.7% net profit before tax. So not a success story for 2021, if you ask me. That it was a lot of stress for really not a lot of gain.
At what point did you realize, hey, we've got to, like, not only am I going through one of the most challenging sort of emotional journeys in my life, we have a pretty serious business problem here too?
Yeah. It was probably in about the fall of 21. So it took me a few months, 2 or 3 months, where I was really just in a fog. I didn't know what to do. It was just, again, show up to work and hustle and go home tired. And that's all I could focus on. And it was just the determination of not giving up. And I will tell you, backing up a little bit here, almost every single person that I consulted with and I would reach out to told me to walk away from the disaster. They just said, just walk away and start over. But I knew I couldn't, because purchasing the company from my father's estate meant a financial security for my mother. And if I walked away, it would collapse. So I couldn't walk away. So there was 2 or 3 months I was just in a fog. And I kept meeting with my BTA team, Dave Stevens, Omar, I've got Barrett, and of course our coach Paul. And it was about January of 2022. Paul, he's sitting there on a video call, and I'm whining and complaining about how the world's crashing down, but I'm not giving up, by golly. And he goes, we could listen to you keep crying about this every other week, or you could like get a plan in place and actually follow it. So what's it going to be? And like, all right, point taken. So thanks, Dave. Dave Stevens, really just a good kick in the pants there. And I just realized we need to really focus on what are we good at? What do we want to do? I mean, there's a lot of jobs we could do and make a lot of money at, but maybe not so much fun. So what are we going to do that's going to be fun, that we're good at, that we can provide great value and service to our clients? And let's do that. And that would have been around December, January of 2021, early 2022. We just decided we just needed to focus on what we're good at and what we're going to have fun with doing. And that's what we're doing now. That's the best part about it. So, yeah, that was the defining moment there in January last year.
When you're thinking of like your worst, that fog that you mentioned, like I was in a fog. So there, I don't know if it's a 6-month period, a 3-month period, longer, whatever. Like, where were you at mentally, emotionally, spiritually through all of that? And I'm not trying to twist the knife here. I'm just genuinely curious, and I think our listeners would be too, about where your soul is at in those kind of dark seasons. And then 2-part question, what can you say about grieving, but also just standing in the fire and being who you need to be leader wise for the business to get through it?
It was a pretty dark place. I was pouring myself into work and not my family. I was working probably a good 80 some hours a week in the office, and I'd come home, usually, not always, have dinner with my wife and kids, put the kids to bed, and I was back to work. And I'd sitting right here at my desk till 2, 3, 4 in the morning. I'd be back up at 6, head to the office and just hustle. And I probably was not that pleasant of a person to be around. It was pretty dark.
Was that a coping mechanism? Do you think it was almost like there was you did that subconsciously? Like, hey, at least I don't want to think about this too much. This really sucks. Let me just pour myself into the vehicle that is work.
I think it might have been a combination of coping mechanism, but also maybe a sign of desperation, trying to just figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I had my wife and a couple of friends just tell me, like, man, you need to give some of this up to God. Like, you're not in control of this. Like, let God take some of this burden.
Yeah.
And reach out to Him. And I just realized, you're right. The failure is not always final, and it's just there's a lot of opportunity here. Like, just kind of take a chill moment. Mm-hmm. Like, let's look at what we're good at. Mm-hmm. Let's focus on what's important. And one of the last things my father had told me before he passed away was he had a very near tragic accident, an airplane crash, where he had 5 minutes before he actually crashed. He thought he was going to die. And he told me about this, and he even wrote a book about it. And he said the only thing going through his head, he had two things. One was get the plane on the ground, because he had 2 passengers with him. He's like, I knew I was going to die, but I needed to get them on the ground to their family. Mm-hmm. They all, spoiler alert, they all survived by the grace of God. But he said that was the number one focus. The number 2, he wasn't thinking about work. He wasn't thinking about jobs. He wasn't thinking about a change order that was getting rejected. He was thinking about, should he have spent a little bit more time with his family? Should he have been at dinner last night rather than out on a job site? And that really resonated with me a lot, where I realized my family is so much more important than this business. And tagging on to that, my employees, their families are more important to them than this business. So the business became what supports the family rather than me supporting the business. And there was a very defining moment there where my time involved went from 70, 80, 90 hours a week to about 50. And I just had to force myself to be more efficient. And so going back to, this was a very dark place. I didn't really know how to get out of it. The thing that really pulled me out of this was, the grace of God taking control of my life, and also having a really great support network. I had great business mentors with BTA, and I had some very close family friends who were willing to tell me if I was not spending time with my wife and my children. And they had no problem calling me up and telling me, shut your computer down and go home. Mm-hmm. It's time to go to dinner, 7:00 at night, go home. Mm-hmm. So having that support network really pulled me out of that fog.
Can you say more about why the support network is so valuable? Is it the loneliness that it cures? Is it the practical advice, the sounding board, a mix of everything, some stuff I didn't mention? Like, what, everyone kind of says this, community is really important, especially when the going gets tough. But what was it really about for you?
When you think about a teenager that is just madly in love with their first boyfriend or girlfriend, and everyone says love is blind. Unfortunately, grief is also blind. I don't feel like I could really take in the full gravity of the situation. So yes, it was a coping mechanism that I was working. Yes, it was a sign of desperation, but really in that about 6-month window there, during that grief, I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to get out of it.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know I was in it. Yeah. And it wasn't until last fall, 6 months after the fact, I'm thinking, my goodness, I was in a fog in that time frame there. And I'd probably still be in it if I didn't have some very good friends that surrounded our family that would tell me, hey, time to go home, time to be with your family. This is what's more important. The business will be there on Monday. You can go home on a Friday night.
You mentioned the story about your dad in the plane, and I know that's something you've inherited. You're quite an avid flyer. Yep. What role did that hobby in particular, that pastime, that interest play in this chapter, and I guess still on a continued basis? What do you treat that time up in the air? Tell us what you love about it, first of all, and then I guess what I'm curious about is that kind of like a release valve for you?
Oh my gosh, yeah. You should have saved aviation for the end, because I could talk about it all day long. It's my addiction. I love aviation. I love everything about it. Science, math, technology, history. It's all there. It's amazing. I just love getting off the ground and away from the static and just noise and chaos in life. One thing that's one of my most fun things to do, if I, by myself at least, is I'll go hop in the airplane after maybe a moderately stressful day, and I just need to think. I'll go up in the airplane and just circle the city at about 10,000 feet. My cell phone doesn't work. I'm not getting signal. I get to circle the city and just listen to podcasts or listen to audiobook and just sit there and think for a while. And 2 or 3 hours up there, I'm good. I'm recharged. I'm back. And I learned how to do that from you and I had talked about this before, the Band of Brothers movie series. Wonderful series and lots of great little leadership tidbits. Well, they talk about a part there where the 501st Infantry or the Airborne Unit, they're stuck, trenched in at the Ardennes Forest and are just getting shelled by the Germans. And just, they had no hope. I mean, we talk about a darkness and a where our soul is in grieving. I mean, these guys are losing their friends every day. But what they talked about was bringing them back off of the front line for 100 yards for just a matter of a couple hours. Give them some coffee, give them a meal, and then they're recharged and they're back in the fight for another week or two. And I realized aviation was that for me. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't compare my situation to the infantry getting shelled there in World War II, but the concept remains the same. We're just getting away from the static and chaos to where I have a moment, my zen, my moment of clarity at 10,000 feet just circling the city. It's amazing. And it's actually blossomed into something even far greater. We now have a corporate aircraft where I can fly to pretty much anywhere in the country within a matter of a few hours. I get to fly myself. I have fun with it. I get to reach out, see our employees, see the projects, set foot on site. If we had a problem on a job in Central Texas tomorrow, I could leave at 6 a.m. I'll be on site, see everyone, help fix the problems, and I'm back in the office before 5 o'clock.
That's so cool.
It's awesome.
Cool.
So,
well, we should mention for the listeners too. That's actually incredibly. I mean, you guys are one of the biggest EV charger station like installers in the U.S. now. So you've got sites in every state, most of the states. It's geographically very diffuse. You got to get places and see things all over the U.S. to manage the business that you run. So there's actually a really practical component to this flying thing too.
Yeah, I wish the airplane was an electric plane. It'd be a lot of fun to cruise around the country that way. But the technology hasn't caught up yet.
Yeah.
But no, it's if I need to go from Kansas City here out to Denver or Austin, Texas, or Atlanta or Washington, D.C., it's a matter of 4 to 6 hours as opposed to TSA and all the airlines and overnight stays. So my time is so much more efficient where I can get out, reach the project, get back to the office, and get back to work and hustling. And in the process, I'm up high, my cell phone's not working. So I'm in a moment of just think through, what am I going to do? How am I planning out my week? And I've got this awesome machine in front of me that I'm flying, and it's pretty cool. It's the thrill of my life. So I love it.
And I think I've reflected on this a lot, and I have to say, like, I'll preface this by saying, this is sort of a cliched bit where everyone says, oh, it's so important to have your interests and go get exercise and go be in nature because it makes you feel better.
Couldn't be more true.
Blah. It's true but it's true, and I've thought about why that is, and I'll just bounce this off you. Like, it's for me. I really like mountain biking. I really like riding my motorcycle, and I really like sailing. And then in the winter, that's snowboarding. So there's kind of 3 or 4 things there. And the thing that all of those activities have in common is they require a level of like conscious focus. Flying is even on a higher plane. So it's like you say you're thinking, but I almost think that you're so focused on the task at hand, because you will literally die if you're not, that it allows your conscious mind mind to focus on this rote process that you know well and you follow SOPs. And then it's your subconscious mind that's kind of worrying away. So I always find when I get off the bike or I get off the boat or whatever and I hop back on land, it's like I've not done that much problem solving in my conscious brain, but all of a sudden I sort of have answers to things or I have solutions to things that I just didn't, 2 hours before. It's like it's giving you access to your subconscious because your conscious mind is so busy in the activity.
Yep. It's also, there's a problem solving tactic I've used in the past where you essentially kind of just have to wipe your memory of what's going on. You've got this big problem at hand, but you've got solution A and solution B, and now solution B has ramifications for another project, and things are turning around, and we've got superintendents going in one direction, but their construction crew somewhere else. And so by just shutting all that off for a few minutes, once you turn it back on, so for me, hop in the airplane, go travel out to the site. By the time I get on the ground, I'm like, all right, let's look back at the root problem. What's going on here? And you can really just focus on problem solving and not just putting out fires all over the place, but let's actually let's solve the root problem here. What's going on? Do we have a staffing problem, or do we have an internal issue? Is it a system? Do I need to just go take a client out to lunch? So I love flying. You brought that up. That was at your own risk there. But for some people, it's golfing. For others, it's mountain biking. Whatever it is, I could not stress enough how important it is to get away from the front lines, whether it's a matter of hours or go take a vacation with your spouse. Just get out of it for a few days. And then when you come back, you just recharge and just go to war again. Like just go get after it, kill it.
I'm curious about the business moves that were made. So we've talked about the loss, the emotions that kind of followed and where you were at, how you kind of mentally and spiritually dealt with that. Now I'd like to know the levers you pulled and the knobs you turned within the Osborne Company to fix the issue. What were the plays that happened that got you out of it?
Sure. The very first thing, as we talked about a little bit earlier, is focusing on what are we good at. And there were a few things we're good at that you just don't make any money at. So we unfortunately had to cut that out of the mix for a bit. But we focused on we're a good commercial builder, renovation, new construction. We're good at it. We have a facility maintenance division, and we're good at it. It's good margins. And we're an excellent EV charging station installer. We have some of the best people in the country managing these projects, and we build so many of them. I honestly couldn't tell you how many right now, but that are under construction. But we have roughly 1,000 charging stations that we've installed just in the last 5 years. Wow. And so that's what we're good at. We decided it's the same collection of people, but we're going to focus it like it's 3 different divisions. So we have very specific people in each of these divisions, all within the same office here. And so we're going to work together, but I have a maintenance guy that's all he does, and I have charging station people, that's all they do, and I have a commercial guy, and that's all he does.
I'm curious about the stuff that you scrapped. What were the few things you kind of snipped off the offer? Like what's in the graveyard of abandoned business ventures for you guys?
Sure.
Or maybe put on hold. Abandoned's the wrong word, but just on pause.
I would say more pause is a better way of putting it. And really, that was anything residential. It's its own market, and it was profitable for us at times, but it just wasn't anything I really had interest in. And that was something my father was really passionate about. He loved building really fancy homes and multifamily projects, but I could never really get into it. And so the last residential project we built, it was a beautiful 12,000 square foot house. And we ended up losing about $250,000 on the job. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't have my heart into it to really manage it well. And by the time I caught the problems, it was too late and it was all over and just a total disaster. Yeah. So we just decided, all right, no more residential for a while. We're just not going to worry about it. Let's just focus on what we're good at. And so we walked away from a lot of people who'd call us like, hey, we want you to build this beautiful big home. And we just, sorry, we don't do residential right now.
Yeah.
Maybe in the future. There's plenty of money to be made there, but not for us right now.
A divergent focus is just such a killer. And often overestimate how much bandwidth we actually have and how versatile our thinking can be and how multidisciplinary we are. I mean, I think that we all have a little bit of it, and super sophisticated business owners have seemingly a lot of it, but it seems, there's just this great quote, and I say this all the time at BTA with our team here, like, most businesses die of indigestion, not starvation. And it's been said before on the podcast too, but it's like there's real truth and wisdom in what you're saying, where it's about what you say no to, not what you say yes to. And I suspect things became, when you did those cuts, did things become just overnight a lot easier for you guys?
Yeah, a little bit. One of the things along with it, like, we had to first define what we're going to do. And then we had to realize, like, what do we actually have to do to stick to our guns on this? And the first one was, we stopped bidding on public jobs all over the place with 15 or 20 different bidders. Today was our first day, actually, that we bid on a public job in almost, I think, just over 2 years, and we won it. It was great.
Congrats.
We don't want to make a habit out of it right now because we have other work we're good at. But what we identified is there's 3 common killers of construction companies, and one is cash flow. So we had to get our cash situation in check and our finance control. Another one was geographic area, working outside of your geographic zone. Now, we're a national contractor, but we don't really go too far west of the Colorado Rockies. It has to be a special case, but we have to be very diligent about not going into Utah unless it's something really special for us. And the third thing was going outside our skill set. So after my father had passed away, I lost the skill set within our company of the multifamily. And I just chose not to replace that skill set in the company. So sticking to maintaining your cash flow and having a good cash flow coming in, staying up on your billings, that was number one. Sticking to our geography and sticking to our skill set. We just determined those were the 3 things that if we violated them, it was going to kill the company really fast.
Any you mentioned earlier, like, just no systems, no accountability. It sort of was a bit willy-nilly. Everyone had their own way of doing things.
Very reactionary.
Yeah. Were there controls you put in place, daily check-ins, meeting structures, reporting structures that just gave you a little bit more visibility into what was happening, but more importantly, a little bit tighter of a grip over what was happening?
Yeah. So we did a couple of things. We started out, we moved the company into using Buildertrend for a short time. So we had a lot better finance control on our invoicing, our subcontractor purchase orders, daily logs. We actually outgrew the system pretty quickly, and a lot of that was the integrations with our accounting software. So we have since integrated over to Procore. And right here from my phone, anytime, day or night, if I'm fighting insomnia, I can sit and read daily logs on any of our projects. We have about 150 active projects across the country. And I can see where they're at. I can see the daily logs. If somebody missed one, I know about it. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about it the next morning. Mm-hmm. But there was no common operating platform or common operating picture for our superintendents or for our project managers. So making that available to them was the first step. But then I had to get them to use it. That was definitely more challenging, getting them to use the systems, but staying on them every single day for daily logs. And there's a reason it's called a daily log, because you fill it out every day. And if you don't, we've got a very serious problem.
How long did you have to hound them? A month, 6 months?
Oh my gosh. It's work in progress. We're better about it. Every once in a while we might miss one, but I would say it was probably 3 or 4 months of just every single day
being the bad guy.
An email, call. Where's your daily log? Oh, it drove people nuts. And taking the words of Tim Groover from his book Relentless, come up to my standard, I'm not coming down to yours. Yeah. So we set the standard. If it's a daily log, by golly, you better get your daily log in. And if you don't, this isn't going to work out. Like, I need people who can get their daily logs in. And so that was the progression and the step and the the pig-headed discipline of the sales machine, it can apply to project management as well.
How would you score the health report card on the Osborne Company today compared to that nasty chapter in 21? Where are you guys at in terms of growth, size, efficiencies, profits? I'd love to hear kind of the before after photo of your business.
Yeah, 2021. We had about a $10 million gross revenue year with about 1.7 net profit. 2022 shook out about 15 million with closer to about a 15% net profit. So night and day difference. Mm-hmm. And 2023, we'll see how the next month or so goes here. We're ramping up a lot of projects, but we're looking at having about a $15 to $20 million year at about a 15% net profit again. So definitely life-changing, because there's actually the ability now to where we can compensate our employees a little bit better. We provide a little bit better benefits. I don't feel as guilty about taking out a few $1,000s to take my family to the beach for a couple of days. That never happened before. So we can have a little bit nicer of a Christmas party. So definitely life-changing. Our employees are driving newer vehicles. They're proud of them, not driving old beaters. So that huge culture change. As far as the work that's coming up, there's a mindset of quality, integrity, and dependability, which is our company core values. Quality in all our work, exceptional quality, dependability. Client wants something done, get it done. Mm-hmm. Don't leave it till next week. If they ask for it to be done today, then get it done today. We serve our clients. They pay the bills. They put the food on the table for us. So let's do a good job for them. Let's provide good value. And the integrity piece, that's a real quick deal breaker with this company. Whether you're an employee or a subcontractor, if you can have your integrity questioned, but and you can have people accuse you of things, but you don't lose your integrity until you give it away. Mm-hmm. Like, you have to be the one to give it away. And so if somebody loses their integrity by lying, cheating, or stealing, they're just done. Mm-hmm. We just don't tolerate that. Mm-hmm. And so by bringing everybody up to that high standard, we have, in my opinion, now I wasn't alive in 1976 when the company was formed, but in my opinion, we have the best team now this company has ever seen in the last 47 years. And it's actually a lot of fun going to work now. There's been days it's not fun, but we actually enjoy showing up to work, get out there and crush it every day.
There's a lot to be proud of, man. I mean, 10 million and just barely skating by to 15 to 20 million and 15% net, extremely healthy. And it's not you don't run a simple business. It's quite a complicated one. So major congratulations to you. Have you reflected, Stephen, on how this chapter, as awful and dark and sad as it was, have you reflected on how it's made you better as a business person, a dad, a husband, a sibling, a community member? Are there gifts that came with this journey?
Yeah. Someone told me a long time ago, don't ask God for patience, because he'll give you a reason to really need to earn some patience and, put something in your life. And, I think a lot of what I've learned in the last year is patiently wait for the right timing, but you got to be willing and ready to strike. Like, when there's a job opportunity in front of you and it's the right one, and it might be a gutsy deal, but you're going to do well, just do it. Like, go after it. Be concerned with failure, but just go after it. Go get it. It's been very humbling the last couple of years, the community and the support that came around somewhat to our rescue. We had a few different clients out there. The day my dad passed away, one of my preferred clients found out and very quickly had some flowers sent over to our office. And, they knew we were going to go through a tough time, and they helped us out. And when we were struggling on our projects, they were very gracious about it. So, learning that moment of, I guess, gratefulness for others and gratefulness for what God has done has been a really, really big part. And so, it's just the same way whenever I greet somebody now and they ask how you doing, I always have to respond, I'm doing better than I deserve, because it's just, there's a lot of wonderful people out there willing to help. You just have to have the humility to actually ask them for help. And that first 6 months of fog is where I wasn't really asking for help. I was trying to do it on my own until I finally asked my friends. I asked my BTA group, my wife. I was like, I need help. Like, I don't, work's falling apart. We need to figure this out. And so we had a tactical pause, and that's where we went through this progression of what are we good at? What are we going to do? How are we going to raise the bar? How are we going to hold our people accountable?
And what's next for you guys? Is there a BHAG? Is there a vision? Like what are you really excited about for the Osborne Company over the next 5 years or so?
Two things. One of them, we're completely overhauling our project management systems and processes right now. We've got all of our team really deeply engaged in it. We're getting really granular with how we manage our projects, and everyone's excited to just provide excellence. And our workload is reducing because of it. But 5 years from now, what we've started doing here in the last, I don't know, about 12 months or so, we started acquiring properties that we're going to use for development or passive revenue. And ultimately, the goal in about 5 to 10 years is to have a real estate portfolio that is generating revenue that will create new projects. So we won't be as reliant on external clients anymore. We'll be using our own passive revenue streams to create our own developments and essentially work for ourselves. So I pitched this idea to everyone here not too long ago, maybe within the last month, and they were so excited because, like, hey guys, we can work really hard now. We're going to generate the cash and the revenue to buy these properties and develop. And then in 5 years, we're just working for ourselves. We'll go pick a project and we'll just go build it. And so they're really, really excited, really focused right now. So those are the two big things we're working on: are further developing our systems, but ultimately becoming our own client. Very excited about it.
Unbelievable. I am too. Let's close on this, Stephen. Maybe someone's listening right now and they're in their little world, and they're going through absolute hell right now in their life. What advice do you have for someone who's going through a chapter like the one that you just went through?
Yeah, I know there are people out there right now, and I'm going through probably very similar situations and likely worse even. It is really dark. It is very depressing, but there is tomorrow. We've still got tomorrow. There is hope, and there are people that care about you, even when you feel like nobody cares or you're on an island by yourself. So many people care about your situation. So reaching out to others and just simply saying, hey, can I grab lunch? Can I tell you about my life and get your perspective on this? I had this with my BTA group. I'd just be able to open up and just total honesty. I'm like, hey guys, here's what's going on. I don't know what to do. What do you think? And every once in a while they'd tell me like, well, like deal with it. Like you need to hire an estimator, go take care of this, or you need to have a chat with your receptionist over this issue, or like fix it. And they'd show me how, and having the humility to actually sit there and listen to them and take that advice. But I think probably the first piece was really just opening up with the fact that I was getting overwhelmed and I needed some help. That was the hardest hurdle to get over. And it was just amazing how many people came out of the woodwork in such a loving and caring way, wanting to help us. And there's even clients out there, if they know you're going through a tough time, hey, come build this deck on my house, or come remodel my office. I want to help you out, and I like working with you. I don't really care if you're the cheapest bid. I know you guys will do a good job, and there's people that want to help. So
you just got to ask.
Yeah. You just open up.
Yeah.
People love you. Yep.
Stephen, you said it all, my friend. I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your story with us. Somebody out there is going to listen to this, and it's going to hit them, right between the eyes and be exactly what they needed to hear. So I'm really honored and humble that you came on today and just talked us through it. And You should be really proud of yourself and your whole team, from 10 million and barely getting by to nearly 20 with a very healthy net. There's a lot of good stuff that you've put together here over the last couple of years. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Benji. We have a wonderful team. I am very proud of them. I'm very thankful to the BTA team, and it's been an honor being on here with you.
Thanks. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Contractor Evolution. If you've already subscribed to our channel, consider sharing this episode with another contractor who you think needs to hear it.